Ethan Blackwood stood at the zenith of his empire. Blackwood Tech, not just a global leader, but a dominant force in the realms of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. His office, perched high above the city, was a minimalist haven overlooking the sprawling cityscape, a testament to his tireless hard work and razor-sharp intellect. Every detail within, from the sleek glass desk that seemed to float in the air to the carefully curated art pieces adorning the walls, reflected his meticulous nature and unwavering attention to detail. But beyond the gleaming veneer of success, beyond the carefully composed public image, Ethan carried a persistent weight, a burden of unfulfilled longing. He had always desperately strived for his family's unwavering approval, a validation that, despite all his accomplishments, seemed perpetually out of reach, a distant dream. The Blackwoods, a lineage steeped in generations of old money and unshakable societal standing, never quite embraced Ethan as one of their own, a lingering sense of not quite belonging. Richard, his father, a paragon of traditional wealth and social standing, harbored a subtle and often unspoken disdain for Ethan's nouveau riche tech fortune. Eleanor, his mother, outwardly supportive and ever charming, often subtly echoed Richard's sentiments in softer, more palatable tones. Victoria, his younger sister, saw Ethan as nothing more than an inexhaustible ATM, her sense of entitlement fueled by years of unchecked privilege and unquestioning acceptance. The revelation arrived on a seemingly ordinary day, one that began like any other within the sterile walls of Blackwood Tech. Ethan was meticulously reviewing the company's financials, a task he approached with his usual level of meticulous scrutiny, when he stumbled upon a series of highly unusual transactions. Large, surreptitious sums of money being quietly funneled into offshore accounts, their origins carefully concealed and indirectly connected to Richard, Eleanor, and Victoria. The details were meticulously masked, hidden beneath layers of corporate jargon and complex financial instruments. But Ethan's inherent intelligence and access to advanced AI tools allowed him to unravel the intricate web and trace the funds back to a clandestine operation buried deep within the heart of Blackwood Tech. A hidden deal deliberately kept secret from him, where his parents and sister were brazenly selling proprietary information to a rival company, jeopardizing his empire. Ethan felt as if the very foundation upon which he had built his empire had suddenly crumbled beneath his feet, sending shockwaves through every fiber of his being. His family, the people he had always supported both emotionally and financially, the individuals he held dearest, had betrayed him in the most profound and unforgivable way imaginable. The years of relentless striving for their elusive approval, the countless sacrifices he had willingly made to build Blackwood Tech into the global powerhouse it had become, the unwavering loyalty he had shown them time and time again, all seemed like a cruel and elaborate joke, a carefully orchestrated charade. The gilded cage he had painstakingly created for them, intending it as a symbol of his love and success, was, in reality, a meticulously crafted trap for himself. Consumed by a tumultuous mix of raw anger, deep-seated hurt, and utter disbelief, Ethan found himself overwhelmed by the burning need to understand why his own family, the people he trusted most, had turned against him in such a devastating way. He delved deeper into their meticulously concealed financial records, determined to unearth the truth, uncovering a tangled web of mounting debts, extravagant spending habits, and reckless high-stakes gambling losses that threatened to consume them. Richard, it turned out, was desperately struggling to maintain the Blackwood family's coveted status and opulent lifestyle in a rapidly changing world, a world where old money was gradually losing its grip on power. Eleanor, trapped in a loveless and increasingly suffocating marriage, sought fleeting solace in the ephemeral pleasures of retail therapy and the fleeting recognition afforded by lavish social events. Victoria, accustomed to a life of effortless luxury and endless indulgence, had plunged headfirst into reckless financial ventures and increasingly expensive habits, driven by a desperate need to maintain the same luxurious lifestyle she'd become so accustomed to and unwilling to relinquish. Ethan also unearthed long-forgotten family secrets, hidden beneath layers of carefully constructed facades, long-buried resentments that had festered for generations, bitter sibling rivalries that had shaped their dysfunctional dynamic, and a pervasive history of Richard's manipulative behavior and controlling tendencies. He learned, with a growing sense of bitterness, that Richard had always subtly seen Ethan as a threat, a potential usurper who might one day overshadow the Blackwood legacy and dim the family's long-held spotlight. Eleanor, desperate to maintain the family's carefully cultivated image and avoid any potential scandal, had passively condoned Richard's actions, willingly turning a blind eye to his transgressions, even if it meant sacrificing Ethan's happiness and well-being. Victoria, consumed by envy over Ethan's undeniable achievements and the attention he garnered, saw him purely as a means to an end, an endless and readily available source of funds to fuel her extravagant lifestyle and insatiable desires. Ethan recalled a seemingly innocuous conversation from his adolescence, a moment that now carried a profound weight of meaning. Richard had scoffed at his youthful interest in technology, dismissing it as a fleeting fad, unworthy of a Blackwood's attention. "A Blackwood is a leader in society, not a glorified coder hiding behind a computer screen," Richard had declared with a dismissive wave of his hand. The cutting words echoed painfully in Ethan's mind, a stark reminder of his father's unwavering disapproval and his inability to see Ethan's potential beyond the narrow confines of the Blackwood tradition. His mother had often subtly, but insistently suggested how he should utilize his money to further elevate the Blackwood name, constantly reminding him of the immense sacrifices she had made for the sake of the family's reputation. She always subtly reminded him of how much she had willingly given up for the sake of preserving the family's image, and how crucial his financial contributions were towards maintaining her and the family's coveted social status. His sister, accustomed to a life of effortless entitlement, saw his money not as a gift to be cherished, but as an inherent right, something she was inherently entitled to without needing to express any gratitude or consideration. Armed with a damning knowledge of his family's callous betrayal and the underlying motives that had driven their actions, Ethan resolved to embark on a deliberate course of action, a carefully calculated response to their treachery. He wouldn't stoop to engaging in a public feud, airing their dirty laundry for the world to see. He wouldn't seek petty revenge or engage in vindictive acts fueled by emotion. Instead, he would meticulously and systematically dismantle the gilded cage he had painstakingly built for them, leaving them to confront the harsh consequences of their own selfish and short-sighted actions. First, he contacted his trusted lawyer, a man who had served as his legal counsel and confidant for many years, instructing him to immediately freeze all family assets that were directly or indirectly linked to Blackwood Tech. The lawyer, a longtime confidant and friend who understood the complexities of Ethan's family dynamics, expressed profound concern but ultimately complied with his client's request, understanding the depth of Ethan's pain and the justification behind his actions. Next, Ethan personally contacted the bank, a financial institution that had managed his vast fortune for years, revoking Richard, Eleanor, and Victoria's access to his accounts and credit cards with unwavering resolve. He meticulously transferred the substantial funds into a separate, heavily secured account, ensuring that his family could no longer unscrupulously exploit his hard-earned wealth and use it for their own selfish purposes. Then he privately contacted the various accounting firms and financial institutions that had been handling his family's finances and mounting debts, issuing a firm order that their existing debts were not to be refinanced, renegotiated, or otherwise altered in any way, effectively cutting off their lifelines. Finally, as a final act of self-preservation, he walked calmly down to the security department, a task he undertook with a sense of grim determination to ensure that any attempts by his family members, or anyone else, to gain unauthorized access to his office would be thoroughly scrutinized and personally vetted through him, making it clear that security personnel were under strict instructions not to allow them anywhere near his personal workspace. The swift and devastating consequences of Ethan's deliberate actions quickly reverberated throughout the Blackwood family, shattering their carefully constructed world of privilege and entitlement. Richard, a man accustomed to wielding power and influence with effortless ease, found himself abruptly locked out of the financial accounts that had fueled his lavish lifestyle and enabled his control over others. Eleanor's credit cards were unceremoniously declined at high-end boutiques and exclusive restaurants, and her coveted social standing plummeted as she could no longer afford the extravagant events she once effortlessly frequented, leaving her isolated and humiliated. Victoria, accustomed to a life of effortless luxury and endless indulgence, was forced to swallow her pride and reluctantly sell her cherished designer clothes, sparkling jewelry, and collection of expensive cars in a desperate attempt to pay off her mounting debts and stave off financial ruin. Richard, initially stunned by the sudden turn of events, stubbornly refused to believe what was happening, attempting to contact Ethan repeatedly, but his calls went unanswered, met only with the cold indifference of Ethan's unyielding silence. Eleanor left a series of increasingly desperate voicemails, her voice choked with tears, pleading with Ethan to reconsider his actions and restore their former lifestyle. Victoria sent a barrage of angry and accusatory text messages, her sense of entitlement undiminished, bitterly accusing him of ruining her life and destroying everything she held dear. "How could you possibly do this to your own family?" she demanded, her words dripping with resentment. Ethan remained stoic and resolute, refusing to engage in their escalating drama or succumb to their emotional manipulation. He had selflessly given them countless opportunities to appreciate the immense privileges they enjoyed, to cultivate their own success through hard work and dedication, and to treat him with the basic respect he deserved as a member of their family. They had consistently chosen greed, unbridled entitlement, and ultimately betrayal. Now, they would be forced to confront the consequences of their choices, facing a reality far removed from the gilded existence they had taken for granted. As weeks bled into months, transforming the once vibrant tapestry of their lives into a faded and distorted image of its former self, Ethan remained steadfast and unwavering in his carefully considered decision, determined to reclaim his life on his own terms. He channeled his energy into running Blackwood Tech with renewed vigor, expanding his burgeoning empire, forging his legacy. He actively cultivated meaningful connections and surrounded himself with loyal friends and colleagues who appreciated his character. He found solace and purpose in his demanding work, pouring his creativity and intelligence into developing innovative AI solutions that addressed real-world challenges. One fateful evening, Richard, Eleanor, and Victoria appeared unannounced at Ethan's office, their unexpected arrival shattering the carefully maintained peace of his workspace. They had somehow managed to bypass the stringent security measures, their faces etched with a desperate plea, their carefully constructed facades crumbling under the weight of their circumstances. "Ethan, please, we desperately need to talk," Richard pleaded, his voice uncharacteristically humble and subdued, a stark contrast to his usual commanding tone. Ethan, his expression unreadable, silently ushered them into his meticulously designed office, the setting of so many pivotal moments. Richard, initiating the conversation, began to stammer out apologies, offering a litany of excuses for their egregious actions, desperately trying to justify their betrayal. He spoke of mounting financial pressures, the overwhelming weight of family obligations, and the misguided need to protect and maintain their perceived image. Eleanor chimed in, her voice thick with tears, tearfully admitting her own profound regrets and expressing remorse for her complicity. Victoria, Humbled by her dramatic fall from grace, her sense of entitlement severely diminished, pathetically begged Ethan for his forgiveness. Ethan listened in complete silence, his gaze unflinching, allowing them to fully articulate their perspectives and attempt to justify their actions. When they had finally exhausted their justifications and pleas, he slowly stood up from his imposing desk, his gaze unwavering and resolute, conveying his final judgment. "I selflessly gave you everything I could possibly offer," he said, his usually controlled voice betraying a subtle hint of emotion, a flicker of the pain he had endured. "I wholeheartedly supported you, offered unconditional love, and desperately tried to make you happy. And how did you repay my kindness and generosity? You brazenly betrayed my trust, coldly conspired against me, and attempted to greedily destroy everything I had painstakingly worked for to achieve. I'm in the process of changing my life to be happy, and for people I love, those people are not in this room," he continued, his voice firm but laced with a hint of sadness. "I am not willing to offer you any forgiveness easily. You will not be receiving any more money from me anymore. I will no longer sit here and subject myself to your emotional manipulation or habitual abuse. So please, I am respectfully asking that you leave voluntarily and leave me alone." He pressed a discreet button on his desk, summoning his security personnel to escort the unexpected visitors out of his office and away from his personal space. The trio looked at each other, a look of disbelief and shock etched across their faces, at the finality and unwavering resolution of the decision he had just conveyed. Eleanor, her carefully maintained composure shattered beyond repair, dissolved into tears, while Richard, his ego bruised and his power diminished, desperately tried to convince Ethan that he would selflessly do anything to fix things. Victoria, sensing the futility of continuing their futile appeals, realizing that nothing she could say would change Ethan's mind, also looked defeated, her dreams of a life of perpetual luxury fading into oblivion. As they were silently escorted out of Ethan's office, with the lingering sense of their shattered dreams hanging heavily in the air, they could see a clear glimpse into his meticulously rebuilt life, realizing that he had moved on with unwavering determination. They understood that there was no way back to the life they had recklessly squandered or the relationships they had so carelessly destroyed. Years later, Ethan had significantly and successfully branched out his wealth and fortune into innovative AI applications focused on improving healthcare outcomes, creating numerous companies that actively contributed to saving people's lives and enhancing their overall well-being. One day, while idly scrolling through the news on his devices, Ethan unexpectedly saw a report detailing his family's current financial struggles, their opulent world crumbling around them, as they faced serious debt and were forced to sell the vast majority of their once expansive mansions and luxurious properties simply to afford basic everyday necessities. Unexpectedly, his mother gave him a call telling him that she was very sorry and that she loved him and would support him from now on. Ethan paused, a thoughtful and introspective expression crossing his face, as he stood alongside his loving wife and their cherished children, admiring the serene beauty of their own very loving and expansive manor house. As a direct and enduring consequence of the events that had unfolded within his own complex family, Ethan had gained a deeper and far more profound understanding of the true meaning of family, realizing that true belonging wasn't forged through blood and genetics, but through unwavering loyalty and selfless love. He accepted that his blood only wanted his money. He had learned a valuable but painful lesson about discerning genuine affection from superficial attachment, finding solace and strength in the relationships he had forged built on mutual respect and authentic connection.